There's a dirty little secret. And that dirty little secret is that a lot of law that really affects you, it's enacted in the budget.
That is how they sneak this stuff in the budget.
Now, remember, this never went through a committee. This was language in the budget.
They will now purposely putting in stuff that is so controversial.
All you got to do is claim that you have a mental health problem and that it played a significant role.
This is how the legislative process gets abused.
Hey, welcome back to Smoke and Power. I'm David Quintana with my host here, Mike Gatto, as we talk about the things that most people don't talk about with politics, which is what happens behind the scenes. What is a real story in politics? What are the things that they don't tell you on the news and that you don't read about? I'm a lobbyist. I've been doing this for 20 something years, and I know everything from that side. And Mike is a legislator, and he's been doing that all his life. So he knows it from the elected side. And together we bring you, I don't know. What do you think, Mike? The things that most people don't understand about what happens with power.
And together we bring you probably 80 years of combined political experience. So let's get right into it. We have a fascinating episode today because we are going to talk about
The budget process, not the budget process, but when you think about legislation and when you think about how bills are enacted, you think of that little guy who's sitting on the Capitol steps. I'm just a bill, right? And he's like working his way through all the committee process. Then, he's going to get signed. He's going to pass out of one house to the other house. You all think you understand what happens and how ideas become laws, right? They become a bill and they become a law. Now, there's a dirty little secret. And that dirty little secret is that a lot of law that really affects you, law that might not get through the legislative process, it's enacted in the budget. And I don't think most
to
people know
phrase
that.
this a different way for people watching. People watching tend to separate government action into two large buckets. There are things like laws where the legislature might say, you cannot drive down the street and talk on a cell phone. You have to have it on hands-free. That's a law. It's a rule. And they might say, of course, that you get a ticket if you do. And then there's things like the budget, which is how much are we going to spend to improve this highway? How much are we going to allocate to the school system, right? But what we're going to talk about today is that these things increasingly overlap and they are increasingly sticking in bucket one into bucket two.
Yeah, increasingly. When I first started my career, it happened, but not as much. What happens in California, and I think in other states as well, is you have the budget, and that contains what the spending is going to be as proposed by the governor and as fiddled with and approved by the legislature. Then they send it back to the governor for his signature. And there's a lot of that goes back and forth. And that's what most people picture as the budget. But then in California, we have something called trailer bills. And these are called trailer bills because they trail that budget in chief. And in the trailer bill, what they do is they enact parts of the budget. So you could imagine if the budget says, X amount of dollars are going to be spent for X, then it's not that easy because you need to change parts of the law so that revenue can be used for that program. And those trailer bills were created to have that enacting language, the enacting language.
Okay, hold on a second, everybody. Okay, let me break this down for you because I want to start with an example of how egregious this can be, and then David will give some real life examples. So I just talked about how this scenario, like they want to ban cell phone use in the car, which really did happen during my tenure in the legislature, right? And now it's pretty much the law in 50 states. You can't be like this in the car. You have to have it on hands-free. Just imagine that was super controversial. And I actually think it was at the time. And nobody wanted this thing to pass, and no lawmaker wanted to vote for it. That second part is key. Now, just imagine that the legislature, instead of saying the truth, which is we are substantially changing the rules about how you can talk on the phone when you're in the car, imagine that they called it a revenue program. Imagine that they said, we think there's a new source of revenue out there, which is these tickets. And these tickets, we're going to give all these tickets and, it's going to cost us 100 million in new police force, but we're going to make 40 million in new revenue. And they disguise this as some sort of new revenue program. That is how they sneak this stuff in the budget.
Well, and sometimes they don't even sneak it in under spending. I mean, they'll sneak it in under spending, but for a entity, for a group, for like the courts. So what I'm going to talk about, what I think is one of the most egregious things that we have done in criminal law in California, which is the mental health diversion process. And what that means is that in California in 2018, Governor Brown, and I swear to God, anytime you see where something went south, you'll see Governor Brown either there or he was like right before it.
But wait
Mayor
a
of
second, David.
Oakland.
He speaks Latin. I love his
Yeah.
Latin
Yeah.
witticisms.
He's the smartest dude in the world. Just ask him. I swear to God, I could not hate that dude more. So in 2018, Governor Brown, what he wanted to do was he wanted to allow a way for criminals or for people who are charged with crimes. And if they had a mental health issue, that they would just be diverted before the trial. It was pretrial diversion if they had
But
mental
David, this
health
sounds so
problems.
great.
Yeah, right.
I mean, like nobody ever make up that they have a mental health issue.
Right. Well, these are what you had to prove. You had to prove that it was in the DSM, and I would like you to prove to me something that's not in the DSM.
Right.
They have to have a significant factor in the crime. Well, of course, they're going to say yes. It had. I mean, that's who's to decide that, right? It's up to the defendant to decide that. And it treatment is likely to help. Well, of course, the defendant's going to say, of course, treatment's going to help me. The defendant has to agree to the treatment. Well, of course, I'd rather do that than go to jail. And the court has to find that there's not going to be an unreasonable risk if he's out on the street.
So
So
let's run through some examples. So, like, I'm depressed. Therefore, that affected the crime. Treatment will make it better. And yes, I want to be treated versus going to prison. Right? I mean,
right, that's it.
is it that's
Yeah,
yes, it's that
yeah,
simple.
that's it. Well, then they also have now remember, this never went through a committee. This was a budget. This was language in the budget. And it was 2018, so that was right after you left, right? You didn't vote on this.
Correct.
But there are a lot of really good people that voted yes on this on the Democrat side because you have to vote. Your party requires you to vote on the budget, right?
Okay, so
Mike?
this is also something that viewers might not understand. So in California, there is a very, very deep tradition that if you are a member of the majority party in power, you vote for the budget. Why? Because if the legislative leaders need to know that they can negotiate. You can't have, 80, 120, 435 people negotiating. Legislative leaders need to know that they negotiate the budget, that their caucus has their back. And if everybody starts peeling off, then the deal can blow up very fast. The challenge with this is stuff like this. They will now purposefully, it's leaders taking advantage
Yeah.
their members. And it's putting in stuff that is so controversial that the leader might support, but the public, if they had time to go through the process, would say, wait a minute, you shouldn't have a defendant going into court and saying, gee, I'm depressed, and gee, therefore they don't have to go to jail because they did something truly awful. But that's why they sneak in the budget.
That's why they put it in the budget because the leadership wants it, right? Because it's part of their negotiations with the governor at that time. It was Governor Brown wanted it, right? Because he wants all that crazy shit. And so he wanted it. So he required for it to be put in the budget. And leadership, they have to carry it out. And as a Democrat like you, Mike, you had to vote on it. You didn't have a choice. You did. Very rarely Democrats will have a choice, because they're so powerful in California right now. They have some votes they can spare.
Well, for the record, as an aside, this stems from a much earlier time where you needed a 2/3 vote to pass the budget. Now it's only a simple majority. But also, I was one of a very small group that voted against a lot of budget trailer bills during my time. My last year, I think I voted against 3 or 4, and even procedural moves that I was just like, this is nonsense. This is BS, even when it wasn't my final year in office. But I will tell you what is so dastardly about this too, right? Is that people out there will be like, well, why don't more people vote against it? And I don't think they understand. And I actually talk about this in the book I wrote. Imagine that you are a caring lawmaker and you got elected for one thing. It does whatever your issue is. I don't care what your issue is. It could be highway safety. It could be because you believe in the Second Amendment. Whatever you right now you think is the most important issue, imagine that as your mission in life. You got elected. Your power to get your stuff done, your good stuff done, depends on having the back of leadership and your colleagues. That's the way the legislature works. The legislature is not an executive office. It is not a kingdom. It is by nature something where you got to give and take. You got to get along with others. And if you are a maverick too much, you will be in the doghouse, and your ability to get stuff done for your constituents, for the things you care about, for the really, really good issues will go away.
That's right. That's right. Back to the mental health diversion real quick. You know how so there are some exceptions rather to being able to use this, and one of those is murder, and the other is manslaughter. However, remember, Mike, I said this was pre-trial diversion. So there is an argument that you can still be charged with homicide, a type of homicide, right? Because you don't know if it's murder, because you have to prove murder in a trial. There are people who are being charged with second degree manslaughter, or, second degree murder, other types of manslaughter, and they are claiming, saying, well, I am an alcoholic or I have a drug problem. And that played a significant role in why I killed that person. And it wasn't murder. It is a homicide, but it's not murder because I had no control because I have a mental health problem. This is
What
rampant
percentage
right
of
now.
defendants I mean, because we've talked about this, laws percolate through society. People aren't reading statutory books, but it's amazing how like during COVID, right? It was like word got out, like, oh, you can get a $5,000,
Right,
no questions asked. And like sometimes with tenant protections, it'll be like, oh, now you've got to like have 60 days.
right.
Word gets out.
It does. Bad guys talk. They do. Criminals talk. They go to jail, right? They talk with each other. Hey, man, and that is what is happening. I was talking to the sheriff of Sacramento, and he's like, everybody in jail knows. Because remember, jail isn't for felonies, right? Jail is just so you
Right,
get
right.
all these bad guys who committed some crimes, you get them together, and they go, hey, man, all you got to do is claim that you have a mental health problem and that it played a significant role. Dude, it is human nature. It's been going on
What
forever.
did the sheriff give you any percentages of what percentage of people are now saying this?
He did not give me a percentage, but he says it goes up by half every year. Every
Eesh.
year, which makes sense, right? Every year he says it goes up by half, by half, by half. Because why wouldn't you? Why wouldn't you? You would
So
only
now the legislature will have to fix this, and the fix will be unpopular. So where should they put it in the
put it in
budget?
the budget.
Oh my gosh!
Anyway,
Folks, this is how the legislative process gets abused, and
yeah,
this is
we just
how
want to make
censor.
sure that everyone knows about the budget's role. It's not just for finances, and they sneak stuff into the budget, and sometimes it's very, very bad stuff. So lobbyists like me, part of my job is to find out if there's a way for me to get something into a trailer bill for my clients, because it's a good way to get something in, and it's a must pass bill. So anyway, Mike, you want to close it out?
Folks, if you want to give other examples of stuff that you've heard got sneak through at the last minute, give us your examples in the comments. Shoot us an email. We'd love to hear from you.
All right, we'll see you next time.